to check out all of the great products they are offering. Get everything from MyPillow blankets, sleepwear, kitchen towels, mattresses, duvets, pet beds, comforters, couch pillows, bathrobes, and so much more. Go to MyPillow.com or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code Chicago to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products.
Now, from The Signature, a division of Esquire Bank Studios.
This hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Ooh, they're red, white, and blue.
So, in listening to the so-called position of the Soviets in America calling themselves Democrats, affordability. How many of them understand that since Barack Obama was president, the inflation rate is 55.9%? Just since that dummy moved to Washington, D.C., let alone the continued spend and the 3% every year compounding the spend. $40 trillion we approach. That's not a good sign, but are we succeeding in reprivatizing the economy? It's the only way out is growth. Dr. E.J. Antoni, handsome as ever, smarter than a whip. How are you, handsome?
Shaun, I am hanging in. And I think we got good news on the reprivatization front. We got a lot of things to talk about there, especially in the jobs report, right?
Yes, I'm a big fan of losing crooked jobs that should never exist, losing government jobs. I'm also a big fan of recognizing you're going to have job numbers that may look bad, but they're actually a flushing of fraud in the economy. And when you see the businesses leaving Illinois and going somewhere else and reopening up and hiring more people, I think this is exactly what was needed. But how do you see it?
Very, very similarly, Shaun. Look, Matt, I still remember back during the Biden years, especially his last 2 years in office, when you and I would talk every week, or I should say every month, whenever the jobs number would get released, and we'd go through the report and we would talk about how so much of the supposed growth in the labor market was a couple of things. One, in terms of who was getting the jobs, it was disproportionately foreign-born workers. Native-born Americans actually weren't getting the jobs. They were losing them for much of those 2 years. But also a lot of the jobs that were being created weren't even in the productive private sector. They were in government, particularly the federal government. That's problematic for a couple of reasons. One is that federal bureaucrats, the work, quote-unquote, that they do, maybe there's another four-letter word for what they do, but the things that they do cause problems for ordinary Americans. They impose regulatory costs, for example. Believe it or not, the average federal regulator costs the economy $10 million a year. And it's not just because of the salary and benefits. Again, it's because of the economic harm that regulator does to the American economy. So as you add these government bureaucrats, you need to add far more private sector jobs in order to counter the economic harm that's being done. And again, that's not just talking about paying for their salaries and benefits. So what I'm getting at here, Shaun, is that just as during the Biden years, hiring all of these government bureaucrats made the monthly jobs numbers look better, even though it was not a sign of economic health. Now today, with Trump laying off literally hundreds of thousands of federal bureaucrats, it makes the jobs numbers look worse. In this last report, you actually gained private sector jobs, but you laid off so many government workers that it made the overall change a net negative. But again, it's actually a sign of economic health, not a sign of underlying weakness.
Well, of course it is. Just in the same thing as the manufacturing numbers. I have, people that don't understand anything that have my number somehow text me, well, manufacturing jobs are down. Well, artificial intelligence and automation now under Trump accounts for 30% of manufacturing. So these are actually good things, even though they appear to be bad. And the reason is those jobs not only are more efficient, the profitability of those companies is more efficient. It's better on a multi-front issue, whether we talk about the viability of American companies and succeeding. Also, those people find new jobs in manufacturing. Not all of them, but most of them. And that's the other thing you have to get used to. We have a workforce that's changing and convulsing. When you see 26,000 illegal alien truckers that have been pulled off the road, that's great. That means we can put 26,000 American truckers on the road. When you see 400,000 Haitians that are no longer employed, great. Now Americans can go get those jobs. Why is it that somehow the imbeciles among us called Democrats have taken control of the narrative rather than us exposing the bastardization of the narrative?
Great question, Shaun. And look, one of the things that I think is worth pointing out, too, since you brought up truckers, is the fact that it's not, look, you're absolutely right that every time you get one of those illegal aliens out of that job, it frees up that job for an American. But just as, if not more important, is the fact that so many of these illegal aliens literally can't read. They can't read English, so they don't know what the road signs say. That's how you get these clowns driving the wrong way on highways and literally getting Americans killed. So it's not just about saving American jobs, although you're 100% right, it is, but it's also about literally saving Americans' lives on the highway and elsewhere. And you brought up a great point with manufacturing. People forget, I think this is really, really important context. People forget that manufacturing was in a 3-year slide from the beginning of January 23 until the end of January 25. So all of 23, 24, and 25, manufacturing was pretty steadily hemorrhaging jobs. You might have had a month here or there where you had a temporary uptick, but it was a very steady downward trend. So we're hemorrhaging jobs. It took the administration about a year to get things in order and to get things like the big, beautiful bill through, which allowed for full expensing, huge business deductions there, and a lot of tax savings for American manufacturing. And what has been the result? Not only has the 3-year decline stopped with this year, but now this year we are actually slowly but steadily gaining manufacturing jobs back. We're not back to the peak, right? We're not off to the races, but we actually stopped a 3-year decline cold and have now begun to reverse it. I think that's so important for folks to understand that, because otherwise, if you don't remember that, again, we had a 3-year decline in the industry, you see the small gains that we're having today and you think, okay, well, what's the big deal? It is a big deal because, again, you stop the car from going in reverse and you put it back into drive. You're moving in the right direction again. And that's just manufacturing. What we're seeing in industries like construction is an outright boom.
You know what's fascinating, too, is the actual liability and cost of illegal alien workers that we still see morons making arguments that have destroyed the quality of our lives as citizens in very tangible, very real ways. When you take illegal aliens, I speak of this as my area where I grew up was a hub of illegal aliens before it was popular. I'm going back to the 70s and 80s, okay? And the political whores at the time used to try to pretend they could keep illegal aliens in a certain sector of the neighborhood, which they had written off as it's lost anyway, let's just go on. So I saw it with real eyes and the real fraud in it before it became politically acceptable for this. But when you look at the massive cost increases to insurance of illegal aliens pretending they can drive in America, the destruction to the quality of life in the aspect of the collateral costs of illegal aliens. Now in Chicago, we have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that have been squandered with one company that never employed anybody to house them during COVID. When you look at the combination of the fraud and you look at the combination of what it's costing Americans in the collateral costs of illegal aliens, I really do believe that out of the $9 trillion that was added to the debt in the 4 years of the dimwit in diapers Joe Biden election thief, I believe out of that $9 trillion, I would say 80% of that money is strictly frauded, abused, and liability cost of what these policies cost Americans.
Yeah, Shaun, it really is amazing. This is such a great point you bring up on the untold cost of illegal aliens being in this country, where not only do you have them doing things like abusing the welfare system. California might be the worst with this, although I'm sure Illinois is probably not far behind, where we're always told about how, illegal aliens can't get all these welfare benefits. That's a myth. No, it's not. In fact, we have seen California caught red-handed multiple times now doing exactly that, getting illegal aliens enrolled in all kinds of federal programs because, unfortunately, Shaun, a lot of these programs, the way they're structured is although they're funded by the federal government, they're actually administered by the state government. And
right.
This is one of the ways in which the Trump administration has been cracking down on illegal immigration. Is they're doing the opposite of Biden. Whereas Biden turned a blind eye, the Trump administration is actually enforcing or trying to enforce the rules on the books. And the crazy thing is a lot of states are suing them for it. They're literally suing the federal government for trying to enforce federal law. But I digress. To your point on things like car insurance, Shaun, a lot of studies have demonstrated this. And it's not like it's right-wing kooks or it's only conservative think tanks. It's not like it's just the Heritage Foundation coming up with these numbers. You're talking industry experts and nonpartisan groups have demonstrated time and time again with pretty thorough empirical analysis that the elasticity here is more than one. In other words, every time you increase the percent of illegal aliens in an area by, let's say, 1%, the cost of car insurance in that area is going to go up by more than 1%.
Of course.
And the reason for that is largely because so many of those illegal aliens get behind the wheel and they're uninsured. They never bother getting insurance. And what ends up happening then is if one of them, if they hit your car with their car, who's going to cover it? They don't have insurance. It's very difficult to get them to even appear in court. So your insurance ends up having to foot the bill under something called uninsured or underinsured coverage. And that means that because your insurance company has that additional outlay, they need to recoup it with additional premiums, which mean you and all of your legal American neighbors, again, you foot the bill in terms of higher insurance costs. It's one of the untold reasons why auto insurance premiums are as high as they are today. It is not just inflation driving up the cost to repair or replace vehicles, although that's true too, but it's a large part of this is because there are so many uninsured motorists on the road, and illegal immigration plays a key role in that.
What's fascinating, too, is to watch the bills that were passed in the name of this utopian, everybody's gonna have some sort of a good quality of life for doing nothing. And one of the funny things that came out this week, I don't know if you saw it, I know how busy you are, in the Biden administration, the rural internet, high-speed internet for everybody. Do you remember that? Part of the
yes, and
right.
And last I saw, I don't think they had connected a single person by the time Biden left office, despite spending billions of dollars.
Well, a little town in Nevada, little tiny town, has 6 government officials in it. They have very few people. You know, one of those towns has like 1,100 people, if that. Right? $9 million. They stole the money. The money went to the municipality. They stole the money. Now they're all indicted and the rest of it. When you look at this money and how much of it went to actually any kind of benefit, there is no benefit. And you and I have talked, and we talked about what welfare is, a family of 4 on welfare. Now, you said in Washington it was $120,000. Well, if you factor in what the cost of public school is, right? 2 kids in public school in Chicago is $66,000 a year. That's the cost of illegal aliens, 2 kids. In public schools, $66,000 to the people. Now, you take the 2 illegal alien fathers and father and mother, and you put them in an apartment with food stamps and the rest of it. That is $120,000. It's actually $127,000, but let's say $120,000. And if that cost goes on for 30 years, that's $3.6 million that family of 4 cost society. Now think about the domestic people that have been on this for 30 years. So each family of 4 cost the American government $3.6 million. And I say this because when you break down the numbers that go into these urban areas, these big cities, it's an astronomical money. $1.5 billion in food stamps in just Chicago a year. And they can't keep a grocery store open. So when you have these policies that they keep telling us it's gonna work. Just hang on. 5 years like the Soviets. And all that happens is the debt. And then who gets cast with the responsibility to fix it? Well, those people who never partook in the destruction of it. So when you look at this, and when you're talking to all these eggheads in Washington, and you say, boy, oh boy, how are we going to grow out of it? The answer is we still have continued in the decent sector of our economy, the market, the private sector, the 11 states we refer to constantly. We're growing out of it. But at a certain point, how does it end if you don't stop the sucking sound that's draining and destroying our economy? In your opinion, how does it end? Because to me, we have to do something right now. This is the first time we've ever been in charge with the people who understand the problem. Because you're going to get in these Mitt Romneys, these Bushes. You're going to get in the swindlers that are just quiet now and waiting to get back. Don't you have to do something right now?
I think so, Shaun. The question is, who's going to do it, right? I mean, and
Big Donnie.
Look, I love, yeah, really, dear goodness. Look, I love President Trump. He's not perfect. He's got a lot of flaws, but I still love the man for the fact that he's actually in the arena and he's actually there fighting, right? But I don't know who's going to carry the banner of radical change forward, because that's really what we need. To your point, we need that kind of truly radical change. I worry that we might need a Cincinnatus. We might need a strong executive who's going to overstep and with the reins of power do some good, but then miraculously be willing to hand it back. That's why George Washington was called the American Cincinnatus, right? He was offered a dictatorship on a silver platter, and he said, no, return the power to the people, because look, we are in very, very deep. It's not as if there's going to be a collapse tomorrow, right? I'm not going to be I'm not one of those perma bears or anything like that. But the fact is, we've gotten in incredibly deep, right? We have gotten in over our heads. We're about to cross $40 trillion in debt any day now. Yields are converging somewhere in the neighborhood of 5%. That's $2 trillion a year in interest. That's not a good direction.
And here's the difference, and here's why I am an optimist. And I too, I love what Donald Trump has done in so many arenas, so many ways. But here's the difference, and it's the first time in history. It really is. I've done the research. It's the first time in history you ever had somebody who never ran for another office become president, but moreover, who actually did something. What did any of them ever do in the real world, in the real life? What did they do? Donald Trump's the only guy that ever did anything. Whether he bought something, he sold something, he tried to make a profit. None of them have ever done it. And he understands the true extortion of the honest man, the working man. And you could always tell the swindler and the fascist like Bernie Sanders or Ro Khanna and the rest of it. They don't understand. They're arguing against the people who are actually working, keeping their money. That's all Donald Trump has done. All he's really done is say, if you work, you're going to keep more of your money. And the people who get something for nothing, they're going to have a very difficult time. And you know what it reminded me of? I have a treat for you today. This is just for you, because I knew you were going to be on. This is our guy who, by the way, I've noticed you dress a lot like him. Handsome son of a gun and an economist, Frederick von Hayek.
If you could leave a short statement for the future generations, and that would sum up everything that was meaningful and significant to Frederick von Hayek, what would that statement be?
Modern civilization, which enables us to maintain 4 billion people in this world, was made possible by the institution of private property. It's only thanks to this institution that we achieved an extensive order far exceeding anybody's knowledge. And if you destroy that moral basis, which consists in the recognition of private property, I think we will destroy the sources which nourish present-day mankind and create a catastrophe of starvation beyond anything mankind has yet experienced.
They don't argue about our property rights. And this is the problem right now. And the people behind Trump can do it because he can sell it because he always has. I don't think many can. Maybe Bessent can. But until they understand, you're not arguing for utopia. Stop it. We're already communist. Stop selling the fear. We are already communist. Obamacare is communist. Social Security is communist. Medicaid, Medicare, communist, communist, communist. Chicago, New York, New Jersey, communist. Argue for what made us who we are, the property rights. You're not entitled to my stuff, my life, my money, my choices. You're not the fascist. Everybody else is. And yet they just take it. I don't understand why they lost the argument for the youngest country and the richest for one reason, property rights. And that's it.
Well, Shaun, I mean, there's two different things here. And I think if we look back at who Republicans have been nominating for a long time now, whether it's George W. Bush, whether it's McCain, guys like Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, these candidates who, for the life of them, have no idea how to talk to the average American because it's like they can't speak in the vernacular. It's like all they can do is this kind of corporate boardroom speak because that's where they were born and raised, and it's all they know. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. I don't know what exactly the cause is, but they just can't speak to voters in plain English. And then the other important thing is that, and I guess this stems from the fact that they can't communicate clearly with the average American, it's the fact that they're never able to point out all of the areas in American life that are the most expensive, where costs are rising like crazy, where price increases are out of control. They're all precisely the areas where government is the most involved. In other words, those are all the areas where, as you said, Shaun, we're already communist, where we already have socialism, where we already have a lot of times a kind of fascism. It might be technically private ownership of industry, but the government dictates to them everything that they can do. Nothing is more regulated today than loans on home ownership, right? And so what is one of the most expensive things in the economy today? The American dream of owning a home. What about education? It's difficult to find something where the government is more involved than education, particularly the financing of your education. And that is why, once again, the cost of getting a 4-year degree in this country has exploded, and kids are leaving college with $250,000 in debt. Half the time it's for a degree that ends in the word studies. And on top of that, what about something like medicine, right? It is incredibly expensive. If you look at our healthcare in this country, why? Because every single step, whether it's health insurance, whether it's the actual health provider, like a doctor, the medical billing companies, the drug companies, it is all so tightly controlled by government, and government is so in bed with those industries, especially at the regulatory level, that is where you see, again, the highest increase in costs. But for some reason, Republicans have been completely unable to explain to people that it is, again, precisely the areas where government is involved that costs are rising out of control. But if you look at something where there's essentially no government involvement at all, like for flat screen TVs, prices are a fraction of what they were just a few years ago. And even then, prices were a fraction of what they were 10 years before that.
Well, one of the most amazing things is if it was bound by any fundamental, any economic fundamental, it could not exist. And what I mean by that is the American entitlement system. It could not exist. They're not redistributing wealth. They're creating the weapon of taxation called debt to fraud it. What they're doing is Bernie Madoff couldn't have thought of it. It's amazing how they were able to unmoor us from any financial or economic fundamental. And that's why it's 40 trillion, 30 of it created since one moron from Chicago who never did anything went to Washington. This is the part you have to drive home. You have to do it. Come on now.
Shaun, we are doing our best, right? We are doing our best.
Heritage Foundation, you tell everybody there I love them, even though they don't invite me to their snooty parties with the jackets and the elbow pads. I said I got one. It's even corduroy. I'll blend right in. EJ Antoni, thanks for always being.
Shaun, if it's any consolation, I don't go to those parties either.
I know. You'll come to Shaun Fest. I can't wait to see you. I'm going to give you a big hug. Thank you. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back with your calls and comments.
He will never negotiate his constitutional rights with the government. Live free or die on the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560.